Hey guys, it's Mike here. In the most recent chapter of Dragon Ball Super, readers witnessed as Moro went up against the Z Fighters, and proceeded to stomp them, even worse than Harold versus everyone at the Mr. Multiverse competition. First on his hit list was Vegeta, who sprang up from his supposed defeat to attempt to defeat Moro and 7-3's current combination, something that many believed would lead to the climax of this arc. However, all hopes for Vegeta's victory and relevance in this arc seemed to be shattered in an instant as Moro was able to avoid Vegeta's attacks, and then steal his powers from him. Unfortunately for Vegeta, Toyotaro introduced a new rule that states that he has to physically damage his opponent to use Force Spirit Fission. So naturally, Vegeta got beaten down once again, with all of his hard work and determination amounting to nothing more than a power-up for Moro, who for some reason can now use all of 7-3's abilities without the 30-minute time limit, because magic, I guess.
A wizard did it.
We were also told by Piccolo that fusion would be useless here against Moro, because with Force Spirit Fission he would be nullified. Yet a theoretical Gogeta or Vegeta would potentially have Force Spirit Fission, and be faster than Moro, meaning that he could use it before Moro can and win. But I guess Piccolo's explaining something here, so we have to ignore it since his IQ fell into a bottomless pit in this arc. Either that or Toyotaro forgot a rule that he created in the exact same chapter. Or maybe Moro will be the first villain to ever attack a fusion before they can transform. Anyway, each of the Z Fighters got their own character moment in this chapter, attempting to defeat Moro in dramatic fashion. However, most of these moments were pretty much copied and pasted from previous arcs, especially the Cell Saga. For instance, when Gohan was using that restraining technique that Gotenks and Buu used in the Buu Saga to restrain Moro while Goku used a Warp Kamehameha to attack him. After this, Moro lost an arm, but immediately regenerated it, because much like Cell, he was in possession of Piccolo's powers, which he attained from 7-3. Although it's kind of weird that he still had those powers since it probably should have been at least a half an hour by now. But again, this is the same story where 5 minutes lasted hours, and the Tournament of Power, which was 48, was the longest arc in Dragon Ball Super. And then he punched a hole right through Goku, similar to what Piccolo did in the 23rd tournament. And speaking of Piccolo, he just so happened to use the light grenade technique for the first time I can remember since his fight against Android 17. And finally, Moro proceeded to blast him through with a special beam cannon, using very similar framing as to when Cell killed Future Trunks after returning from self-destructing. Although hopefully in this case they actually remember that Piccolo can regenerate, unlike in Resurrection F, when he died from a really small blast to the chest. Even the androids intervene in the fight, although fortunately Toyable didn't go so far as to have Moro absorb them. On the surface, or at least out of context, I can see people really enjoying these moments and this chapter. Moro is being cemented as a powerful threat who our heroes are on the verge of losing to. And Toyotaro also dialed up the violence, drawing our characters bleeding, having holes blown through them, and on the verge of death. Now, I've actually heard some people complain about the chapter being too violent, but I'm guessing that they're not too familiar with earlier Dragon Ball. The fight with Piccolo Jr., for example, was incredibly violent, and there were scenes of brutality all throughout Dragon Ball Z, especially in the manga. So although it may seem a little jarring when the more toned down homogenized Dragon Ball Super anime is compared to this, it works within the greater franchise. I mean, if you're going to have Moro be this overpowered, we might as well see him punching holes through people like Ricky-O. But still, my biggest problem with this is the lack of originality. It felt to me like Toyotaro didn't really have any ideas for how these last two chapters would play out, so he just went back to the Cell Saga and the other arcs and then copied and pasted moments into here, only under a slightly different context. Now, I love the Cell Saga. It's my favorite arc of Dragon Ball Z, and Cell is my favorite Dragon Ball villain. Moro had some similarities with Cell before now, but the more Toyotaro leans into this and takes from Cell, the more this villain begins to feel like a ripoff and less original. I liked Moro because of how different he was. His ancient appearance, inspiration from demonic figures like Baphomet, and comic book characters like Galactus. It was interesting how he used his magic to overcome the power of our heroes, adding their might to his own and pushing them to train to achieve new abilities. But recently, most of that originality seems to have left the character, and we might as well just call him Super Perfect Moro after these past two chapters. But after our heroes had been defeated, Dende made his way to the battlefield in order to heal them. However, he was blocked by Moro, who stole another one of Cell's techniques, which Cell incidentally stole from Android 17, with that being a force field. That's when we saw the outfit of an angel, who opened up a space in the force field and allowed Dende to go inside. Suddenly, as Moro was facing down Jocko, a blast fired alongside the Galactic Patrolmans and hit Moro. That's when it was revealed that the angel was Merus, who had appeared to stop Moro. And so another fan theory that Merus would take the battlefield and try and stop Moro is now happening. But will he actually be able to stop him? Well, in terms of power, it's likely that Merus is more powerful than even super perfect Moro. After all, he is an angel, and even though he's seemingly younger than Whis and the others, his power is likely still greater than those on the battlefield. Wait a minute. Mother of God. But even if that is the case, the problem isn't his power, but rather the rules that the angels must abide by. Specifically the non-intervention rule, where according to Whis, an angel who engages in combat or intervenes in mortal affairs will be erased from existence. Now, as an aside, I do have some issues with this rule, because the very person saying it seems to have broken it a number of times throughout Super, such as when he reversed time after Frieza destroyed the Earth, which allowed Goku to win the fight, or how he literally time traveled to the future, creating an entirely new timeline where future Trunks and Mai could live, while also breaking that rule as well. And despite them making an exception about training, the fact that it's an angel giving these mortals the strength and abilities to solve their problems seems to directly interfere with the greater rule. And maybe you can try and argue that it's only directly fighting. Well then what do you call Whis dodging and distracting Broly before Gogeta arrived? Just because he wasn't hitting back doesn't mean he wasn't interfering in the fight or mortal affairs. So it seems like Whis has repeatedly violated this rule while receiving no punishment whatsoever. But now it's important because another angel is interfering? I don't know, maybe Daishinkan just doesn't like him. So it's possible that when Merus has Moro on the ropes and is about to win, Whis or someone else will show up to remove him from the equation. Now I find it difficult to believe that Merus got to Earth without them knowing, so they may allow him to finish the job, using his angelic abilities to stop Moro, by killing him or sealing him away. However, the fact that we saw Dende and Krillin racing off to the battlefield tells me that this probably won't be how things end. Once again, like what happened in prior chapters with Moro in 7-3, it appears that Toyotaro is setting up another subversion to play out. Perhaps Dende will heal the Z Fighters, allowing them to re-enter the battle, or maybe he'll only heal Goku or Vegeta before Moro realizes what's happening, and Toibo borrows another moment from the Frieza arc, having him kill Dende. After all, Krillin is on his way with the Sensu Beans, so he's probably going to use them on someone. Otherwise, it would be a pointless scene to include. Now it's possible what will happen is that Dende will heal Goku, leading to him using Mastered Ultra Instinct, which briefly overwhelms Moro. Then Krillin will give Vegeta a Sensu Bean, which will allow him to sneak up behind Moro, and much like in the Cell games, hit the villain with his ability which allows Goku the chance to defeat him. Or Toyotaro will just completely copy and paste the end of the Cell games, and have Gohan randomly go Ultra Instinct 2, and defeat him with a father-son Ultra Instinct Kamehameha, with maybe the blast being silver this time, which will be totally different. I'm sure some fans will claim it's brilliant and then get angry when I don't agree. Story of my channel right there. The same people also think that I'm just looking for reasons to complain in my videos, rather than me just expressing my honest opinions. As if I actually want an arc that I liked and said numerous times I want to be good to suddenly fall off and turn bad at the end. I mean, that totally seems like something I would do, right? If it does, that's on Toyotaro, not me. I'm not the one writing this thing. All I'm doing is what I always do, which is telling the truth as I see it, with a bunch of humor and sarcasm thrown in along the way. Although I am currently writing my own arc of Super for this channel, so I guess we'll have to see how they compare when it's all said and done. So overall, I didn't hate this chapter, although I'm still disappointed by this ending so far. It's been dragged on past a natural stopping point for me, and at the rate it's going, it's at risk of becoming more wasted potential. We had Goku and Vegeta spend so much of this arc trying to achieve new abilities to defeat the villain, with Vegeta having the most agency and motivation of anyone to do it. Yet both of them were beaten, and Vegeta especially just served as another power-up from Moro. It all feels like subversion for the sake of subversion, like The Last Jedi in Game of Thrones Season 8, only in Dragon Ball form. And if Merus is the one to win here, or some other big subversion happens, I'm doubtful that it'll have the same emotional payoff as the original straightforward conclusion that everything was building toward. And I know, this is Dragon Ball, we usually get some twists thrown in at the end, but there are good twists, and then there are bad ones. And unfortunately, this is leaning more toward the latter. So let's hope that they can bring this to a satisfactory conclusion, because I want to be able to look back fondly on this arc, rather than seeing it as just another example of something that came close to greatness, only for it to lose it all at the end. So those are my thoughts on Dragon Ball Super Chapter 62. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and enable all notifications, so you can stay up to date with all of my videos. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.